Story 1. Taking a class about ancient Rome. I switched out of my engineering program that weekend. I am an archaeologist now. Story 2. Meeting my husband. We had a perfect 40-year marriage until he died unexpectedly last month. During our entire time together, we never argued or raised our voices to each other. We always said please and thank you daily when we did something for each other or asked the other for something. We also said, I love you, several times a day. He always opened my car door for me, and I would say thank you, but you did not have to do that. He would always say, I know I do not have to, but I want to because I love you. I miss our 40-year nightly routine of him saying good night, I love you, then me saying, I love you more, and then he would say, I love you most. That brings me to tears just typing that. There will never be another one like him. I do not know how to be alone. Story 3. Dealing with agoraphobia for about 12 to 14 years. It restricts you so much it hinders any progress you are trying to make. Story 4. My dad passed away recently. He wasn't present much, but he was a huge part of our lives. He struggled with alcoholism and it was difficult. After his death, we did all we could, but I went above and beyond and left the country after his funeral. I ended up solo backpacking Europe for a couple of months, and it honestly changed my life in ways I never thought of. I still can't sleep, but I am glad I have been blessed with my life. Story 5. I was in an abusive relationship and was only allowed to be away from him to go to school. After school one day, I told him I needed to study more and that I would be home later. Instead, I went to a Navy recruiter and asked about joining. I never told them I was abused, but I am sure everyone could tell. Joining the service gave me financial freedom, clarity, and confidence to leave that relationship and let go of my past. Story 6. Trying to become a police officer. Dad has multiple driving under the influence offenses, brother died from fentanyl, and so on. On the path to law enforcement, I stayed on the straight and narrow through my 20s. I did not end up getting hired anywhere, but I became more disciplined and avoided jail or death. Story 7. So many things. Skateboards at 10. Guitars at 12. The wrong girl at 18. The right one at 22. An opportunity at 23. A pandemic at 28. A job at 30. The list is still ongoing. Story 8. My ex-wife called the police on me. Now I can focus on myself and my happiness rather than being miserable trying to satisfy her. Story 9. Getting married to my best friend, soulmate, and the one who makes me a better person was the best decision I have ever made. I was 37 when we married. It is my first marriage and his second. This year is our 6th year together. Story 10. Not marrying my fiancée when I was 25. I felt pressure to do it, but I did not want to. I am glad I did not go through with it. My ex had a drinking problem. We all liked to party and drink during the college years, but I had kind of stopped while he got progressively worse. He also surrounded himself with others who liked to drink. I was fed up by the end of the relationship. After we broke up, he got into methamphetamine and ended up in prison. Story 11. I'm American. I used to carpool with this neighbor to school as a kid. I hadn't seen her in ages because she moved out while I stayed at home with my parents, but here she is sitting on her driveway at Halloween. She moved back in with her parents temporarily. We reconnected, and she invited me to Dublin for New Year's. We turned it into a trip to Budapest and Athens as well. I was born in Hungary and had never been back since I'm adopted. It was my first international trip since immigrating to the United States as an infant. She told me she dreams of moving abroad. I turned 25, quit my job because I didn't want to do phone sales until I was 60, applied for a work and holiday visa in Australia, got approved, spent the best year of my life over there, and found out I'm a bona fide Hungarian citizen thanks to the Sydney consulate. Passport finally in hand. I'm moving to Budapest in 2 months to search for my birth family and experience my birth country. Had I not talked to her on her driveway at Halloween, would I have done any of this? I genuinely didn't know that Americans had access to work and holiday visas. I didn't know this was a path I could take. Now I can legally live in over 30 countries and can say I've lived on 3 continents. She lives in France now with a husband and her child on the way. I'm so grateful she was sitting on her driveway that day. Story 12. I was a relatively average student until 7th grade. Even then, I was only slightly above average. My 7th grade math teacher was fantastic and made pre-algebra relatable and easy to grasp. From there, I took an interest in math and realized I was good at math and science. I continued to do extremely well in school and went on to earn an engineering degree. Fast forward 20 years, and I am an engineering manager at a major energy company. I have a very comfortable lifestyle with my wife, child, and dogs. None of this would have happened the same way if the interest in science, technology, engineering, and mathematics had not developed then. We often do not realize how special teachers and coaches can have such a large impact on our lives until much later. Story 13. When he was a little boy, my dad made a friend. They stayed in contact over the years, and one day my dad mentioned I was looking for a job. That friend said his company was hiring, and I applied. I got the job, which was in a different city and state, and moved away from my family. I met my best friend at that job. I met my husband in this city. I have built my career from that first role. I have a life I love because my dad made a friend. Story 14. I hate to say it, but when I was going to school, I was a total bum living at my mom's house with no job, no car, and no money. One day, I decided to go to Universal Technical Institute to become a mechanic. 8 years later, I consider myself pretty successful compared to where I was before going to school. Story 15. My dad playing golf on vacation. I was in my first job out of college, and it was miserable. My boss was unpleasant. I was fired 3 days after I found out my ex was cheating on me. A few months earlier, my parents were on vacation. My dad went golfing alone on a Tuesday and was paired with a random person. They had normal small talk, but this man was an executive at a company in my industry. I emailed him and we arranged a phone call. It was not an interview, just an introduction. The call went well. I also explained my previous situation, in which I was fired because being 1 year out of college, I wasn't getting any interviews. He said he would get an offer drawn up with a relocation allowance. I moved across the country by myself to a job that paid me much more. Within a year, I met an amazing woman who is now my wife. I also make 4 times what I did at that original job. All because my dad played golf on vacation. Story 16. I was in a severe high-speed car accident. I sustained multiple spine fractures, 7 herniated discs, and 4 tears in both shoulders. Life has been very difficult since then. Story 17. Got pulled over in Texas with a single gram of marijuana on me when I was 18 in 2013. They arrested me, and my father posted my bail after 48 hours. He took my car from the police impound as collateral. I missed that time from work, and when they found out, I ended up getting let go. It was a resort position, and I was living in a condo on the resort that was paid for by the company. I ended up having to be dropped off by a friend to live at my mother's house 6 hours away. Because of 1 gram of marijuana, I went to jail, lost all my friends and my social scene, lost the girl I loved who did not want to do long distance with a deadbeat, lost my job, lost my car, and lost my house. Pretty much everything. Fast forward 12 years, and I am happily married with a 4-year-old and would not change a single thing. It is interesting to think about the things that changed your path and what could have been. But then I think, any small thing might have made me deviate from the path that became my current reality. Maybe if I took a little longer at a stoplight, my whole life would be different. But here I am, perfectly aligned and responding to you tonight. Story 18. My divorced parents were both arrested for possession. One parent had to enter a recovery program as part of the court mandates and actually got sober for the rest of their life. When my other parent was arrested a few months later and went to jail, I moved in with the sober parent full-time. Needless to say, my life had been really chaotic until that point. Deep depression and anxiety, barely able to function. I was given an official warning for truancy. My grade point average was 1.8, and I was basically counting the years until I could drop out. When I moved in with the sober parent, it was at a brand new school district right at the semester point, and something clicked for me that I could completely start fresh. I started getting myself to school on time and doing my homework without being prompted. A year later, my grade point average was 4.0, and suddenly I was thinking about college as a possibility. Plus, all the depression and anxiety melted away when I was living with a parent who did not disappear in the middle of the night, paid rent consistently, and did not expect me to sit on egg crates in the back of an old van instead of an actual seat with seatbelts. It is probably not common to be grateful that your parents were arrested, but I genuinely wonder if I would have made it otherwise. It was the best thing that ever happened to me. Story 19. Negative. Masking social anxiety with substances my whole life, making me spiral. Positive. Trying this sober approach one last time. Story 20. My mother was diagnosed with early-onset dementia, Alzheimer's type, with 6 years to live. The same day I was about to go to the military entrance processing station and raise my right hand. The contract would have been the standard 8 years, with 6 active duty and 2 individual ready reserve. Oddly enough, both timeframes were 6 years. The reason they wanted 6 years from me was because I was going to spend over 2 years at Monterey Bay. The military gets what they put into you. I have many veteran friends and coworkers, and when we talk deeply about this, they all say I made the right decision to stay home and take care of her, and I know I did too. At the same time, I missed the chance to serve my country, which was somewhat customary in my family. Bottom line up front, I wouldn't change a thing because my life has turned out very well. I got to walk my mother off this mortal coil during the scariest and most uncertain times for her. Simply being there was a true blessing. It was not easy, but it was love. Story 21. My brother died at the age of 42 when I was 33 years old. We had plans together and spent a lot of time together. We loved boating, playing video games, going bowling, and talking about life. We supported each other through hard times and enjoyed good times in mutual celebration. He was one of my biggest inspirations and best friends. His passing completely changed me and will influence the rest of my life. I miss you, Bob. I know I will see you again, brother. Story 22. Being at peace with myself when starting to follow Christianity. I am not a boring person and I do not judge anyone, but learning about Jesus and his love changed me. Story 23. Repressed memories impacted my life profoundly. Felt like the rug was pulled out from under me, and life has never been the same. I am happy and healed now, but it took a drastic sharp right turn from what I expected or wanted. Story 24. A woman I knew was leaving on a church mission and asked if I was interested in building web pages for some clients she had. This led me to start freelance web development work. 20 years later, I am a full-time software engineer with a bachelor's degree, making a very good salary. Story 25. My dad died unexpectedly, then 8 months to the day after my first daughter died at 26 weeks. I quit my job, went back to school, worked through 2 majors, graduated, worked as I was supposed to, then crashed hard. I had a full plan to kill myself, just waiting for the right time. Thankfully, a friend was listening and took me to the hospital, which got me help. Thanks to him listening and modern medicine, I could not be better. Story 26. Spending 3 months in the hospital recovering from a serious car accident during the summer between my junior and senior year of high school was a challenging experience. I am now a healthcare administrator specializing in creating policies and procedures for major hospital systems to support disabled patients and manage complex medical cases. Story 27. I was sitting on the couch with Eric McFadden one Friday night, watching movies. I had a small recording studio where he was working on some stuff. I had a band, and we rehearsed in the studio. We had 4 monitor wedges, 2 large double 15-inch mains, and a 12-channel mixer. Eric smacked me on the leg. What day is this? Friday. Oh shoot. What time is it? 8:45. I have a show in 15 minutes. Come on, you're doing sound. We packed up my small practice public address system in the van and headed out to Jake's Pizza Parlor. He involved me in this for the next 5 or 8 years. Some weeks we did 11 shows. I have been doing live sound for over 35 years. It is my favorite thing in life. Well, maybe second. Story 28. I got a job just to change things up while I started to save for flight school and fell in love with the work. 7 years later, I still love my job. and I have just been informed that I will be replacing someone who will be retiring in a couple of years. I could not be more thrilled. Story 29, 1. Moving away after college. I needed separation from family, a fresh start, more experiences, and new perspectives. Therapy has brought many positive changes in my life. Quitting corporate to pursue my own path. I stopped playing a game I could never win to choose a life I want, doing work I love. Story 30. Getting addicted to intravenous cocaine. I lost a great job, my car, my house, everything I owned, all of my friends, and almost all of my family, ending up homeless for about a year. I am doing better now, but that experience left a huge scar on me that I do not think will ever heal. Completely changed how I feel about almost everything. Story 31. Getting fired from Chipotle because the general manager did not like that I declined the apprentice promotion. I was also in the process of moving back in with my mother into a new house, and he knew. It caused a lot of problems, and I was denied unemployment benefits for some reason. I had to get odd jobs here and there and went into debt $5,000 on a credit card just to survive. The number of McChickens I bought once a day using coins was embarrassing. This was in 2021, so things were difficult. Story 32. Being intimate with my best friend's ex without informing him was a difficult experience. I was afraid of hurting his feelings and simply asking if it was okay. So I created an elaborate web of lies and half-truths to hide the truth. When everything fell apart and he discovered what happened, I promised myself never to repeat such actions. This experience was very traumatic for me because I have always considered myself a thoughtful and caring person. Realizing that my choices caused significant damage and trauma within my friendships deeply affected my social anxiety and coping mechanisms. Story 33. Took the less interesting but better paying job instead of the one that excited me but paid half as much. Story 34. The loss of my sister opened my eyes at 16. I was already significantly depressed, but her death was almost followed by my own. I lost almost all hope. Then, 8 years later, I became a mother. I felt a new surge of pain and happiness, both fear and fearlessness. Sometimes I wonder how I ever found meaning in life before I had my baby. I am not even sure I did. As corny as it sounds, I feel like being a mother was my destiny. I hope my son's father and I can continue to create a beautiful life for our boy. Story 35. My mom, who worked at a pharmaceutical company, told me to reach out to someone who also worked there in a department related to my field. I hesitated but did. They were not hiring, but they created a job for me. My mom was eventually diagnosed with breast cancer many years later, and she passed away 2 years ago. She changed my career trajectory, as I was not working in this industry before. 12 years later, I now work for a different company that develops treatments for the specific type of breast cancer she had. Story 36. My parents' divorce. I was 17, overweight, insecure, planning to attend a private college 2 hours away and rush a fraternity, and completely dependent on my abusive father. Now I am 23, in the best shape of my life, attending my local university 15 minutes away without rushing a fraternity, fully independent, in a healthy relationship, and less insecure but still working on it. If my parents had never divorced, I would likely still be a shell of the person I was at 17, under the control of my father. Story 37. When my best friend forever, who I transferred colleges to live with, flamed out after a month, moved back home and left me with all the bills and no friends close by because they also lived back home. I had to drop out of college to get another job to pay all the expenses. She was on the lease but did not have time or an attorney to do anything about it. Then I had a breakdown. Story 38. Becoming a father. I probably would not be here to write this if I had not been blessed with my children. Story 39. Discovering a major that was actually interesting to me. I struggled at college until I discovered neuroscience. I was trying to be a business major, but neuroscience was still hard work, though fun hard work. Story 40. A disabling chronic illness. Goodbye hopes, dreams, career, having children, independence, hobbies, social life, and the ability to adequately take care of myself. Story 41. My friend wanted someone to study Japanese with, so I switched from Spanish to Japanese. I now live in Japan, Story 42. Joining the Navy. I couldn't go to school, had no car or job, and my mother was horribly abusive. If I had not left when I did, I would be dead or in jail. Story 43. Trying trauma release exercises. It looks unusual and sounds unscientific, but it has changed my life. My executive dysfunction is gone. I feel more present and grounded, and I am able to regulate my emotions much better. My burnout and depressive symptoms have nearly disappeared as well. Story 44. Losing 3 siblings in a 12-month span made me realize how precious life is. I left my unhealthy marriage that was never going to improve. Story 45. I was rejected from the army due to asthma. My doctor referred me to the hospital for a respiratory review. While I was in the hospital, I observed all the staff. I have been working in hospitals ever since, and now I am a staff nurse. Story 46. Accepted a job as a driver. Now I am in charge of a large portion of my company's operations, and I am a subject matter expert in our specific area. Story 47. As an introvert on the autism spectrum, being adopted by extroverted friend groups was one thing. The fact that some of them had extraordinary sales and networking skills that they applied to everyday life was a game changer. Story 48. Discovering wakeboarding and martial arts at different times kept me sane and healthy, and I was then able to share my skills with others. Story 49. The 2008 financial crisis disrupted my plans. I was on my way to establishing myself and preparing to attend school for a master's degree in game development. It ruined me financially, harmed my employment prospects, and indefinitely postponed my school plans. I was on my own in that pursuit. Even if my mother had been willing to help, she couldn't. Good news. Despite the unplanned detour, I started classes this month. So far, I am maintaining a grades in both classes while balancing my coursework with being an over-the-road truck driver. I finally had enough of living a life I didn't want and being miserable. Story 50. My wife gave me confidence and told me I am good enough. Because of her, I have a job I love and earn a decent income. Story 51. Traveling and moving to other countries showed me how big the world is, how great my potential is, and the power of currency advantage, such as earning US dollars and spending or investing in pesos. Story 52. Realize that trying new things and experiences does not have to be life-threatening. If something goes wrong or does not work out, just apologize and move on. You will learn more from trying than from not trying. Story 53. Mountaineering. One of my friends went on a 14-day adventure camp for fun and exploration. I heard so much about it for a year that I decided to attend the training camp the next year, which lasted 28 days. I was the most unfit person in the group of 30 people, weighing over 90 kilograms before that. During the training, every morning I woke up at 4 a.m. and exercised until 9 p.m. Your coaches assess you at the end of 28 days and decide whether you pass the training or not. During each of the first 7 days, I was very close to quitting. Then I said to myself, if I can't pass it, I will at least have fun. I lost 5 kilograms and led a group to the final climb of 16,000 feet during the training. In the end, I was one of the 4 people who passed. That launched me into the world of fitness. I now run, bike, hike, box, and am never shy about trying anything new. Story 54. I had a spinal fusion surgery in 2012 that was unsuccessful. A revision surgery was performed in 2014, but it was also done incorrectly. In 2023, I developed a spinal fluid leak, which I have suffered from for 2 years despite multiple procedures. I now have a progressive spinal inflammatory condition that is permanent, resulting from the procedure to try to fix the leak. My leak may never fully heal. One surgery has adversely affected my life forever because outdated equipment and techniques were used. Story 55. Having children, I used to have free time and was somewhat impatient. Now I am busy all the time and much more patient with others. Story 56. Getting panic attacks and dealing with anxiety completely changed my life. It was honestly terrifying at first, but it pushed me to slow down, connect with nature, and really take care of myself. Things like sitting under a tree, feeling the sun, just being helped more than I expected. Also, Thank you to citalopram because that little pill saved me when nothing else could. I still have hard days, but I am much more grounded now and actually enjoy life. Story 57. Forcing myself to move out of an environment that did not promote a positive future for unguided young people. Story 58. Meeting my children's father. He gave me children, then cheated on me and abandoned us. Now I am starting my life over again. I knew I wanted to be a mother and have a family from a young age. I never expected it to be built on lies and manipulation. Story 59. Hard changes. My father's death when I was 10. My best friend's death 5 years ago. Great changes. Meeting my wife. I left London, which I thought I would never want to do, and moved to the United States. This led to a wonderful family and a much more fulfilling and challenging career. Finally being correctly diagnosed with sleep apnea. The National Health Service completely failed me on that score, but once I found a doctor who recognized what was going on, my health and quality of life changed overnight. Story 60. Mental health services. I had problems but was functioning. However, after some therapy with a psychiatrist, my career improved dramatically. Story 61. Graduating with a master's degree but not feeling happy with the direction of things. I have been rediscovering myself and trying my best to return to school for engineering. I want to work for the National Aeronautics and Space Administration or Boeing on the Artemis program. However, I am almost 40 years old and wondering if it is too late for me to become an engineer, even though I have encountered opposition along the way. Story 62. Joining the United States Navy. Grew up, learned a trade, and met my wife. All over 55 years ago, but it all started with the Navy. Story 63. Moving across the country to overcome a drug habit with no job or place to live was challenging. It was difficult but put me on the right path, and 10 years later, I am in a much better place than I ever thought possible. Story 64. I came from an area that paid factory workers much more than office workers. I left school early and made an excellent living in the factories. One day, I wrote an essay for my husband, who had 2 assignments for his night school courses that he had been taking for his engineering degree. It was cheating, but he was exhausted, and it was a minor part of his course. He got a 3.8 out of 4 on his paper. I was delighted and intrigued. I started taking my own courses, and after several years, I earned my Bachelor of Arts in Business. This totally changed my future as we later moved west, and I was hired as an international buyer in the oil industry, which also came with an excellent wage and benefits. Story 65. Watching my dad die from cancer. I was fired 14 hours before he died by my terrible boss. Grief overwhelmed me. I lost all drive and motivation and was terrified at the thought of going back to work. Completely wrecked my brain. But good things happened, too. I moved in with my mom, and we repaired our always rocky relationship. We are closer than ever. I took a year off work and started gardening, my most treasured hobby. I lost 100 pounds. I was laid off last year, but I have never felt happier in my life. That is all my dad wanted. For me to be happy. And I am. Story 66. It is probably cliché, but having a baby opened many wounds from my childhood. I am still healing from the way I was treated. Story 67. My home was shot at while I was there with my 2 toddlers. There was no way to protect them. 6 bullets went through 4 walls from a high-caliber weapon fired a block away. A drive-by shooting hit the wrong house. It was a gang-related incident that almost took out my entire family. We were all unharmed, but there was only an inch of difference between where we stood and the trajectory of the bullet holes. I worked 2 jobs for 10 months and saved every penny for a year. I bought and moved into a large, beautifully renovated trailer for my children. I decided to finally go to therapy because of the experience. I was diagnosed with post-traumatic stress disorder and will see a psychiatrist next month for obsessive-compulsive disorder and anxiety related to locking doors and people knocking. In summary, I lived in a war zone on the south side of my town and became a homeowner and single parent at 26 because of it. Story 68. Being naive and working for the government in a position where I was supposed to report fraud, I did so when fraud occurred. As a result, I was constructively dismissed. The trauma of losing my dream job over doing my job led me to lose my friends and created a significant gap in my resume because I was traumatized. Now I feel like ending my life because I did the right thing, which left me with nothing to live for and in poverty. Protect yourself and never do the right thing if it can harm you. My parents knew this would happen but did not talk me out of it, only saying it was a bad decision due to youth. Parents are supposed to guide, and I really wish they had because it cost me my life. Story 69. Catching Lyme disease completely derailed me for several years. It left me with neurological and coordination issues that led to falling, sustaining a traumatic brain injury, and developing post-concussion syndrome. Story 71. Dad dying of an unexpected heart attack in the Walgreens parking lot 4 days after my 11th birthday. Being excommunicated and disfellowshipped from the Kingdom Hall of Jehovah's Witnesses at age 15 and being permanently shunned by certain friends and family since. Having a child with the black sheep of a family who is also a trust fund baby. My experience with this man is by far the most emotionally grueling, shaping my perception of people and trust. I watched him suffer a slow downfall into schizophrenia over this time. He has gone to jail multiple times and suffered from severe bouts of psychosis. It is one of the saddest things I have ever experienced. I couldn't pick just one and could probably add more, but I will settle with these. Story 71. I quit smoking weed when I was 19 and learned I could be a real contributor at work. It was both a blessing and a curse because I left university for some golden handcuffs and ended up doing a 2-year diploma later instead of getting a full degree. Now I am going back for a degree at the age of 36, which is fine, but I could be much further ahead if I had made better choices when I was a young adult. Story 72. As a teenager, I had a friend with benefits just for fun while I was finishing high school and preparing to go to university for nursing. The plan was to get qualified and join the army. We fell in love. We are married with 4 children, a dog, and a picket fence now. It was the best decision of my life. Story 73. Witnessing trauma in my career as a photojournalist. One of many experiences years ago was when I first arrived at the scene of an ultralight single-passenger accident in a very rural farm field. I ran to the crumpled wreckage across the field. At first, I didn't see anyone, just parts of the damaged aircraft. My training kicked in, and I stopped briefly to record the scene from a distance, then lowered the camera and continued approaching. The wings had failed, and the frame went vertical, causing the aircraft to plummet to the ground. Without relating the horrible details I witnessed as I approached, I found the pilot, a middle-aged man still strapped into his seat. He was moaning and groaning. Seeing his condition was extremely serious, and hearing emergency response on my radio and sirens in the distance, all I could do was calmly assure him that help was on the way and that I would direct them to him. As I turned to run toward the first responders more than 100 yards away, I heard the moaning stop. To this day, I think that I, a stranger, was the last person he saw before he passed. His body was so bluntly disfigured that I knew he would not survive. I felt helpless. I knew my work was about recording history and truth, but the fragility of human beings and respect for their dignity hit me hard that day. I did not photograph the pilot. I directed the first responders to the scene with a brief summary of the situation. Story 74. Getting arrested and facing serious charges taught me that I am no longer a child and that I cannot trust people. Story 75. Starting therapy in 2019 really helped me. The last 6 years have been challenging. Therapy began in late 2019. My sister and close friend passed away in 2020. I experienced workplace abuse in 2021. I entered my first long-term relationship in 2022. I moved out and bought a house in August 2023. I faced relationship issues in early 2024. She was not what I expected, so I looked elsewhere. The breakup occurred in 2025. Story 76. My dad took us down to Florida right after I graduated high school. I wanted to go to my classmates' parties. We ended up going to Ripley's Believe It or Not Museum, which had an exhibit with a pressure plate that made a loud bang near your head when you stepped on it. I was aiming for criminal justice when I entered college a couple of months later and had a moment of self-reflection about some of my habits. When we returned home, I looked at the program syllabus and saw I would have had to do calculus. I graduated from community college last year with a degree in three-dimensional animation. Story 77. There are multiple people I have met who have changed my entire perspective. Sometimes these were not even deep relationships, just things people say that uproot major assumptions I have made about life and reality. Story 78. I was injured in a car accident when I was in college. I was supposed to play college lacrosse, but that never happened. Changed my life in many ways, even 7 years later. Story 79. A pipe fell off a car in front of me while driving, went through my windshield, and hit me in the chest. It broke my ribs, and my ribs punctured my heart. I survived, surprisingly, with minimal injury. I am very lucky to be alive. It gave me a lot of time to think while in the hospital and a change of perspective. I realized I was not happy with my life and decided to change it. When none of my friends were there to support me, I left my old life behind in that hospital. The only thing I remember about the accident was how the emergency medical technicians made me feel safe. Now I have finished my studies to be an emergency medical technician and live a great life surrounded by great people. That pipe was the best thing that ever happened to me. Story 80. Getting education. I had always been a lazy student until I was 18 and realized that because of that, I ended up with a job that bored me. It was my girlfriend who said to me, "Why don't you go and study biology?" That sparked me. I now work as a teacher and absolutely love my job and life in general. Best decision ever. Story 81. A friend took me to a 12-step program called Adult Children of Alcoholics. It started my healing journey. Had I not met her, I doubt I would still be alive, let alone happily married. Story 82. My ex-boyfriend stalked me for a year after I caught him snorting heroin and ended our relationship. He ultimately overdosed on fentanyl, which was equally traumatic. Story 83. Amazing neighbor moving in next door who became like a second mother. Her house was an escape from my dysfunctional home, a safe place where I could be a kid. She changed my life and is still important in my life today. Story 84. Falling in love with the wrong person. My life has never been the same. I feel as though I have walked into another dimension, another reality. Story 85. Hair loss completely ruined my early 20s and I am struggling badly in my mid-20s. Took away my youth, identity, and confidence. Story 86. Not moving to a new city every 5 years to get away from a terrorist group calling themselves Seraphim Stalkers. Story 87. Bipolar disorder completely derailed my career path. My first manic episode ruined my background check. My diagnosis meant I could not get the security clearance necessary to do the job I wanted. Unfortunately, that came after the 2 undergraduate degrees, 3 internships, honors, and about 2/3 of the way through my master's degree. So I found something else to do with my life that did not involve national security or firearms. Story 88. My father died. My parents never planned. I became the caregiver for my mother, who has dementia. She is in hospice now, but it has been a long 8 years, and I am broken in every sense of the word. I am not sure I will ever recover, and most days I hope I pass on before I end up homeless. Story 89. Being let go from my dream job many years ago, I have never fully recovered financially and am currently unemployed. Story 90. My manager and assistant manager at my fast food job both quit abruptly to start their own business. This caused a power vacuum and a chain reaction of positive outcomes for me. I was promoted to supervisor to help out. The owner did not want to promote anyone to manager immediately and decided to have the supervisors handle operations for a while. Ultimately, I was unexpectedly chosen to be the new manager over the more senior supervisors. After about a year, I was scouted by a government official. I was given a position within the Canada Revenue Agency, where I have been thriving for the past 6 years. I received my most recent promotion a couple of months ago and am being groomed for management. Story 91. As crazy as it sounds, when I tried to kill myself at 16, I was so tired of my family. So tired of the abuse, narcissism, bipolar drug-induced episodes, and neglect that I didn't want to live anymore. I had gotten so used to being treated like trash that the small speck of freedom I got in high school opened a depressive window I didn't know was possible. Every day was wake up to a terrible family, live an amazing short-lived double life at school, come back to a terrible family, sleep, and repeat. I think it just broke so many mental barriers I put up. I was exhausted being so many different people depending on the day. The next few days after my attempt, it felt like a huge burden had been lifted off of me. I stonewalled my family, before I even knew what that was, telling them to throw me into the foster system or let me move in with different family members. When they said no to that, I told them I'd just run away, which is exactly what I kept doing until they listened. When I finally did move away, I cut all contact. It's been almost 10 years. I got married 2 years ago, and in 1 month we'll be welcoming our beautiful baby girl. I couldn't be happier, but some part of me is also grateful I did what I did because it somehow made me brave enough to start wanting to live. Story 92. One honest conversation, the kind that shakes you, wakes you up, and makes you realize you cannot keep living the same way. Story 93. I asked myself why I was so angry in life, and I explored the answer. Everything changed as I examined a lot of trauma from my childhood that I had dissociated from. I am glad I asked the question, but the journey was very painful. Story 94. I was in an abusive and toxic relationship, and it changed me as a person. It is almost crazy how much that relationship, which ended about 15 years ago, still affects me today. I used to be very optimistic, happy, trusting, and enthusiastic about life. Now I have trust issues, control issues, and I am pessimistic, bitter, sarcastic, and depressed. I understand that much of this comes from not fully dealing with and processing the damage, and I take responsibility for that. The only thing I can do now is try to leave it behind me and focus on healing so I can be happy again. Story 95. Going to jail sounds strange, but it helped me overcome my depression. In jail, there is no room to feel sorry for yourself, and you have to focus on the future to stay sane. Before I was arrested, I was 1 day away from actions that would have gotten me into much more trouble and likely ended or irreparably damaged my life. I was arrested at just the right time to help me get my life together. Story 96. I broke up with my ex because she was cheating, which ended up disrupting a large part of my life. Then, just a few months later, she married her ex-fiancé, the same person she was communicating with inappropriately while deciding what she wanted to do with her life. One day, she was engaged and living with me. The next day, our son told me she got married 3 months after our separation and became pregnant. Story 97. When I quit my job and moved to another country, I sometimes find myself thinking about how life would be right now if I were still working and had never moved. I would have my salary contributing to the family, but I am concerned it would not be a better life. When I was working at that particular place, I had lots of money and lots of stress. I was self-medicating with alcohol, food, and gambling. That is not the person I want to be, for myself and for my daughter to see. When things go wrong in my current life, thoughts and feelings come up, and eventually I compare this to that and know that I am better off here. The problems here are nothing compared to the problems I would face there. But then I speak to my partner, and it seems they are having similar thoughts. I think they miss the life we had. Story 98. I do not think anything really disrupted the trajectory of my life. I have basically been going with the flow and ended up here. Story 99. Saying yes to something that absolutely terrified me at the time turned out to be the door I did not know I needed. Story 100. My sister died. I doubt I would have ever met my husband or be where I am now if she had not. I wish she had not, but I cannot imagine what my life would be like instead. Story 101. Being betrayed by someone you thought had your back. Them openly lying to my face to protect themselves and throw me under the train. It has given me a lot of trust issues, and now I rarely let people in. Story 102. Fiancé broke up with me when I was 21. This broke my heart, as we had been together for 5.5 years. We were living in the same apartment complex and attending the same college, and she immediately started dating another guy. I saw his car parked near hers morning and night, so I knew they were already very involved. The pain I felt was unbearable. She was everything to me. We were getting along very well, and she ended it without warning. She came down, said she had met someone else, and that was that. I didn't have any real friends at school other than her, so I had nobody to turn to. I am not going to say I was suicidal, but I was totally alone, hundreds of miles from home, and I couldn't escape the pain of seeing them together. My lowest point found me drunk on a 4-pack of wine coolers while sitting on a park bench during a massive thunderstorm, hoping to be struck by lightning. All I got was soaking wet and a mild hangover. But a few guys in one of my classes found out and invited me, a socially awkward guy with zero self-confidence who kept to himself, to join them at a local bar. Come on, man, join us. We're going to have a few and play dominoes. It wasn't easy for me to go out. I talked myself out of going 3 or 4 times before I finally said, just go. When I parked my car, I sat in my seat almost paralyzed, not sure what I was so fearful of, but I couldn't get out. I watched a few people walk by and go inside, and I thought, if they can do it, so can you. That night out changed my life. I was welcomed by strangers, served a few beers, and invited to come out and play ball with them later in the week. This led to more nights out, parties, more friends, and a profound change in my social awkwardness and confidence. I met my friends for life. The people I met over 30 years ago in the wake of my breakup are like brothers and sisters to me. We still either see each other or keep in touch regularly. If she hadn't met someone else in a study session and ended it as she did, who knows what I would have become. She married that person, became a religious recluse, and they don't seem to be having the fun I'm still having to this day because of the friends I met back then and the confidence gained from true companionship. I had a ton of fun throughout my 20s, as a few of my newfound friends ended up as roommates. We all eventually settled down in our early 30s, and I've been married to the greatest woman ever for almost 25 years. Story 103. Fell in love with someone who I cannot have. We want it all, but we cannot have it because it is too late now. Story 104. Getting bullied at school while teachers do nothing, despite multiple reports of similar incidents from other victims. You cannot trust teachers to do the right thing. I have never trusted one in that setting since. That is my experience. I am a teacher now, and I do things differently. Story 105. A house fire that took one of our dogs left my family in pieces, and it has never been the same since. I do not think any of us coped with it in a healthy way. Story 106. This is pretty innocuous compared to the other posts, but I took a chance on a new job when I had a comfortable, relaxed, and well-respected position. It basically supercharged my career while my old position, if it still existed at this point, would have been difficult as the place faced significant budget cuts about a year after I left. Story 107-1. My late father married his second wife when I was 11. He was verbally abusive and she was his equal. My father was wealthy, but by the time he died in my early 40s, he was ruined financially and emotionally. My brother and I were expected to and did support them financially. The most significant event was being diagnosed with a genetic disability at 47. After a lifetime of being told I was lazy, stupid, and mentally ill, I realized I am in fact strong. I have had the strength to live through it all while maintaining my values, sense of humor, and mental health. My life is now peaceful, and I take good care of myself because I believe I deserve it. Story 108. My ex-fiancée had a car accident and died a couple of months before the wedding. That led me to almost die, but also to experiences I never thought I would have. Now I am with another person whom I love with all my soul, and am living a completely different life, like being born again. Story 109. Getting a part-time job in a grocery store. I was working on my Bachelor of Arts with the intention of moving into academia and needed some extra income. Instead, I ended up spending years working my way up in management for that chain and was referred to my current managerial role in technology by someone I met while working in stores. I also met my husband at that grocery chain and most of my close friends. Being in the store management team was an absolutely horrible job, especially during the COVID-19 pandemic, but I escaped that company and am thrilled with my life now, so it was totally worth it. Thanks a bunch for sticking around till the end of the video. Remember to subscribe, and until next time, stay awesome and goodbye.